Hey guys, Alex from Board Game Co. over here, and today we're delving into a topic. This is going to be the first of several videos that we're going to go through about selling games, how to sell your games, where to sell your games, how to price your games, how to pack and ship, all these different aspects of selling games. This has been a viewer requested topic on a bunch of my videos, and I finally decided to start off and go through it. Now, before I get into it, before I jump into the actual first part of this video and cover all the details, let's be honest here. I represent Board Game Co. I own Board Game Co. We buy and sell used board games, so you can definitely expect multiple references of how we're relevant in this conversation. Multiple situations of how, when you can sell to us, how you can sell to us, when you should use our site for a reference and all that stuff. So there definitely will be a certain amount of self-referencing, self-promoting of our own site. At the same time, understand that I value honesty and transparency significantly more than trying to tricking you into selling to us. So I'll be very straight as to when we're a good choice, when we're not a good choice, when you should sell to us, when you should sell somewhere else. I'll be very transparent about all those things, so you can expect a full breakdown as well as self-promotion. Now, this video is going to focus on the pricing of board games. Part 1 in this series is focusing on how to price games, and it's kind of divided into two sections. The first is going to be a bit of a pet peeve, a dive into why people sometimes ask for far too money for their games, why they think their games are worth far more than they are. And then secondly, from there, once I cover that, I'll go into what you can actually do in terms of how to sell your games. And I'll include timestamps below so you can skip to various relevant sections if you don't care about the pet peeve part. Now, when I say pet peeve, I don't actually mean my own pet peeve. I don't mind this. I see it done all the time. It doesn't personally bother me because I understand it. But I see lots of people are always asking about this. If you're in any sort of group that buys and sells games, if you browse any sort of used marketplace, whether eBay, Board Game Geek, wherever, then you see this a lot, and people often are frustrated by it. But I wanted to go into it. Now, that question there, that discussion I'm talking about, is why you often see people selling games for either close to the retail price and sometimes even above the retail price. When you see a game that someone's asking, $45 for, and before you even get into shipping, you're like, dude, I can buy on Amazon for $37. What are you doing? People are often wondering why that happens, why that occurs. And so I figured I'll go into my own opinion, my own breakdown as to why I think that happens, why I think people are doing that, why they're listing their games at above market when you can just buy the new thing cheaper. So to begin with is, if you ignore shipping, very often it can be something that you save a few dollars on. Actually, I should start before that. To begin with, board games often hold their value. Good games very often fetch close to what their new equivalent is. You want to buy a copy of Mombasa online for $49.99 and someone else is selling their copy for $46. Very often, people will take that deal. Us gamers, we tend to treat our games very well. There are definitely exceptions, but across the board, we treat our games well. We treat them with care. We sleeve them. We are very nitpicky. Someone else picks a drink, and we have a discussion about, they just put a drink near my game. We treat our games well, and we also buy a lot of games. So as soon as you have that combination of factors, saving $4 on a game is often worth it. And sometimes it comes with bonuses. Sometimes you save the time that you would have had to spend punching and organizing it, which some people like it. Some people find that very zen-like. Other people find it a chore. So buying a used game, you save $4 plus you save time. Additionally, it comes with extras. Maybe you get sleeved components. Maybe you get a few printouts of different player aids. There's different things you can get. So good games, popular games, hold their value well. So as a starting baseline here, we're talking about when games are more expensive, but they do hold their value. They often are close to the initial value given. So from there, the second reason, which ties in with all the rest, this first reason ties in with everything else, is if you ignore the shipping, if you're looking at a game that's $46 plus $10 shipping, and you're like, well, I can buy for $50 from Amazon with free shipping, well, that might not be relevant to you because maybe this person's hoping for a local exchange. Maybe somebody else who lives in their neighborhood or some local group is going to pick it up and pay that $46. That person doesn't want to lose the shipping. The shipping just goes straight to FedEx, UPS, USPS, whoever. Nobody in the actual agreement benefits from that or loses from that. Well, lose from that, they do. So very often the first baseline of selling a game is, maybe I can get someone local. Maybe I can get someone who wants to buy the game, who lives close by, who's willing to drive those 2 minutes or whatever it is. Maybe they're buying 5 other games from me, so when they drive, 15 minutes to save $4 across 10 different games or 5 different games, great. They save themselves, I win, they win, everyone wins. So the starting baseline is sometimes you have to take out shipping because they are hoping for a local sale. They may not get it, but that might be why they started it off that way. Secondly, the second reason, you'd be surprised how many people don't know or don't follow Amazon as a pricing point. Yes, there are many that do. Yes, there are many who will list their price higher, and we'll get to that with the next reasons. But there are people who just don't know. They bought it at some sort of, put it this way. The person who is so focused on the price point and why would you pay this price when you can get an Amazon for $4 more? There are people who buy these games, that $59.99 game online, there are people who will buy that game for $79.99 at their local game store. Meaning that same person is clearly not as price conscious as you are. And so when you're looking at, well, why are you comparing this to the Amazon price? They're just saying, hey, I bought this at $80 at my local game store 2 weeks ago. I'm going to sell it for $56 or for whatever it is. That's a good price. And you're comparing it to Amazon. They weren't. So very often people either don't know about the Amazon price or don't care about the Amazon price. Or maybe they know about it, but the same way they wanted to support the local game store, they figure that circle of giving continues on and around. And it might, but it might not. So you have to factor in that people are not always trying to rip you off. Sometimes they are, but very often they're not. Very often their frame of reference is just different than yours. That's a real thing. Sometimes we operate in different frames of references. The next reason is that sometimes it's a mental game. Sometimes you have a game, you know you should get rid of it. You don't play Mombasa. You played it once a year and a half ago. You kind of want to play it again, but you just don't. And so you kind of think, you know what? I'll list it, I'll sell it, but if I can get like $3 more than Amazon, like fine, I'll buy it back when I next want it. It's a mental justification for selling games that you know you should, but you also don't want to. So if you can get enough money back, then fine, it's worth it. What's the big deal? I'll go through the hassle of packing and shipping, and then in a year from now, I'll buy it again if I want it. So sometimes it is a mental game. They might be aware of the Amazon price, but listen, if somebody wants to buy it at $3 more than Amazon, I'll sell it. Otherwise, I'll use the fact that I tried to sell it but couldn't as a justification for keeping on the shelf. And similarly to that reason, very often there might be a significant other in the equation. There might be a significant other, and whether for space reasons, time reasons, money reasons, they want you to sell the games that you aren't playing. And so that can be a part of the equation as well. You're like, well, I'm listing them, and I don't mean it as straight up as a attempt to lie to your significant other. I mean, you're going through your due diligence. You're going through the steps to appease either yourself, your own conscience, and or your significant other, and you're listing those games, but you're listing them for what you feel is the price point you're willing to sell it for. And yes, that might be more than it costs new. That can be a thing. Or maybe it's marginally less. Maybe that, like I said, that $50 game you're selling for $46 plus shipping. So you're willing to go through those steps, those jumps, if you can get a certain price point back for your games. But if you can't, well, I guess that's an excuse to keep them. And finally, and this is the one that does happen, but I do think it's the least common of them all. Sometimes you're just hoping to take advantage of someone who doesn't know better. Sometimes you look online, you're like, hey, I want to sell Mombasa, may as well try to sell as much as I possibly can. You know what? Looks like it's on Amazon for $50. I'll start at 56 and hopefully someone buys it. Yes, you will find that category of people. They definitely exist, but call me gullible, I like to think those people are the exception and not the norm. I like to think that people who are intentionally taking advantage of your ignorance are not the common use case here, but rather the exception. So that's it. That's 8 minutes of why people often ask more for their games than they're worth. I constantly see people baffled by this. Like, what are they hoping to get? And the short answer is, sometimes it's self-justification, sometimes they're actually selling. There's all different reasons at play here, and these are just some of the ones that I have, I guess, put together over the years. From there, we'll cover, so how should you price your game? What is your game plan? So let's start with we'll start with tip number one, I guess, which is similar to the things I just discussed. How badly do you want to move this game? If this is a game where you're looking for an excuse to keep, where you're very much on the fence, I do recommend pricing it higher. If you're on the fence about selling a game, why take little money for it? If you're on the fence, I did this when I sold Rackbusters recently. I was on the fence. I'll link to my Rackbusters video above. Rackbusters was a game that I liked the world a lot, but had problems with the rules, and I debated strongly house ruling it as far as how much do I want to mess with the rules, how much do I want to play with it, play test it, and adjust it to suit my own preferences. And so what I did is I listed it for more than I normally would, for more than I would have, I guess, I thought was ideal. And I figured, hey, if somebody buys it right away, great. I mean, this is a hard to get, this is not available on Amazon, it's not a cheaply available game, but I figured I'll list it for more, and if somebody gets to it before I playtest it, that's fine. If not, then I still have Rackbusters and I'll playtest it. And somebody bought it in the first week. So fine, it's gone. I can move on. Not a problem. It was a price point that was worth it to me, given my desire to keep the game and experiment with it. And I do this a lot. There are games that I will sell for less than I need to because I'm just not interested in playing games. Well, playing games with the whole pricing structure, not playing that game. And then there are times when I'm on the fence. So right now, you can see right behind me, Joan of Arc is very much in that category. Joan of Arc is listed on our website right now at a higher price point than I feel it's necessarily worth, especially the fact that you can get the second Kickstarter. But that's specifically because it's my own copy with the dragon, with a bunch of Unleashed Hell, whatever it is. And I'm experimenting with the price point because I keep meaning to play it, but it's also taking up two full Calyx cubbies on my shelf. And so I kind of want to sell it, but also not for less than a certain amount, because at that point I'd rather just keep it and eventually get it to the table. So number one off bat is price your games based on how badly you want to keep it or get rid of it. That should 100% be a factor. As far as determining the actual price, as far as references you can use, there's a bunch of places you can check to find what a game is worth. What you paid for it is unfortunately not a factor in what a game is worth. It's not. It might be a factor in what you're willing to sell it for, but it's not a factor into what the game is worth. In terms of what the games are worth, I'd start with Amazon. Check Amazon, whatever the game is worth, see how much that costs on Amazon, and then discount your copy by at least a few dollars. At least the base point should be less than that. And then ideally even accounting for shipping, which will go back into how badly you want to move the game. But if you see a game for $50 on Amazon and you want to sell your own used copy, I think $35 is often a decent price point for a popular game, far less for a not popular game that nobody cares about. But at $35 plus $12 shipping, it's still a $3 discount. If somebody buys more than 2 or 3 games from you, there's more of a win there. So there's room for a win on both sides at $35. Listing at a $45, that goes into the category of I recommend not doing that unless you really just don't mind if it doesn't sell. Like Joan of Arc, I don't mind if it doesn't sell. It depends on your own personal preferences. Next up from Amazon, we have board game prices. Board game prices, full disclaimer, Board Game Co. is listed on Board Game Prices. Board Game Prices is a great price comparison tool, much better in the US market, but it does have international as well, where it lists the breakdown of different games. This is much better for in-print games than out-of-print games. Their out-of-print selection is very low. But they're in-print games. You can get a very quick breakdown of Amazon selling for X, Miniature Market selling for X. You can get a bunch of stores and the prices they're selling their game for, and you can get a good feel for the average price point of a game with just 1 or 2 clicks without having to go to 7 different sites. Next from there, we have eBay. Now, eBay is great for both in-print and used games, and both eBay, well, I'll cover the next one, and eBay has, I recommend heavily focusing on completed listings only. When you search a game on eBay, you can search for the game title, and then on the sidebar, you can look for different filters and click the one that says completed listings only. Unfortunately, eBay is a terrible reference if you're looking for what it's being listed for. People list their games for different prices across the board. Some of them are relevant, some of them are really not so relevant. If you look at completed listings, what you're doing is you're looking what people actually paid for the game. You'll get a good reference for price plus shipping of what people are willing to pay. And yes, I do recommend this over Amazon, meaning if Amazon's selling $50 and you see the completed listings, people are often paying $56 when you account for shipping, then that means enough people just don't care about the Amazon price or aren't using it that they're willing to pay that. So why not offer that? Why not take that into account? Now, do factor in that eBay will take roughly 10 to 15% off the top between fees and whatnot. And so if you're selling it locally, you can get a better return. But that doesn't affect what people are willing to pay. That just affects your own return. Next from there, very similarly, we have Board Game Geek. Board Game Geek both has a marketplace, which is a better indicator than eBay's regular marketplace, but they also have completed listings, which again, I would say is a better indicator than eBay's completed listings. You do want to factor in some exceptions. They'll always have exceptions, high and low. Low is often because of auctions, meaning someone sold it at an auction and they just got a good deal. And high often includes expansions or other games in a bundle. So you want to kind of look at the details just a little bit, just enough to figure out that you're looking at the correct price point, the correct item. But look at that trend line. Look at that little link. When you check on Board Game Geek, underneath the listings is a link to see price history. And when you click on that, you'll see a little chart that shows you a quick breakdown, different currencies, different locations, different aspects to what the game sells for. And that can be a great reference point to seeing how you should price your game and what you should sell it for. And finally, last on the list is us, Board Game Co. Board Game Co., we sell used games. And if you head onto our site, if you check out Board Game Co, you can get a good idea of what we as a retailer are selling a used game for. Meaning, it's not just we're trying to price it based on what we think they'll sell for. There are definitely exceptions, so take that with a grain of salt. A lot of our pricing is algorithmically based, and so sometimes there'll be these weird exceptions or use cases where something's clearly off, and take that into account. But on a general level, if you go to boardgameco.com, you'll see what a used game sells for. Meaning, when you look at Amazon or board game prices, you're seeing the new version, and then you have to discount it to see the used one. Whereas if you go to Board Game Co, then you'll see the used one, and then another tip, if it's out of stock, that means this game is still selling or trading faster than we can keep it in stock at that price point. If it's in stock, then that's a good reference for the fact that whatever, Castle of Mad King von Ludwig or whatever is selling for $37 on our site. It is a good reference, but again, take everything with a grain of salt. Take them all with all these aspects are just different ways to consider the price point for your game. So that basically covers it. This is video number 1 of how to set the price for your game. This is primarily relevant for when you're selling it person to person. In the next video, we're going to talk about where you can sell your game, the different places you can try to sell a game, and what I would suggest trying to do. And obviously in that video, if you're selling to a retailer such as ourselves, Noble Knight Games, your local game store, if you're selling to any retailer, then you do have to factor in the fact that the pricing is not going to be determined by you, but rather by them, and there's a big gap. But we'll talk about that more in the next video. For this one, this is more focused on why people price their games at or above market, as well as how you can price your game, assuming you're selling it person to person. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it informative. If you have any ideas or tips of different things, different topics that I should cover, both in this series as well as others. As of right now, I plan on talking about where you should sell your game, how you should ship your game, different tips in place for that. But there are so many different aspects to both this topic as well as many others, and if you ever want me to talk about something, just ask me in the comments down below. If I think I have something I can add, if I think I have some sort of opinion that has merit, I will talk about it. And if I don't, because sometimes, you know, I just don't know enough about something, then I won't. But that's basically it. I'm always interested in your opinions. I'm always interested in your feedback of what videos you like, what videos you don't like, which videos you watch more, which videos are kind of like, eh. It's always interesting because ultimately you guys are the audience here. You guys are who determines what content I'm going to make because it's the content you like. Past that, I'm Alex from Board Game Co. As usual, you can subscribe down below, you can like this video, you can comment, any of that good stuff. You can also head on over to boardgameco.com to buy, sell, or trade your board games to us to help support this channel. Until next time, I'm Alex, and have a good one.